Hey there, this is K4A, Knowledge for All educational videos and tutorials. Today I will try to explain how and when you can use Scratch a block which is called change volume by some amount. In previous videos we have explained some features about sound blocks and how to control sound on some basic level, and also how it differs from loudness, which is representation of sound going into the scratch through microphone. But when we talk first of all, I will hide this cat, I don't need it on my screen. Bananas okay, sound button okay. So also we have explained some basic stuff about volume. Volume is the volume of your sound in your game, depending on what sound you have put on different sprites. So you can put sound on sprite like banana, one sound, another sound on sprite button, third on sprite cat, and so on. So you can have lots of sounds which are connected to different sprites, and you can control them one by one independently. So that's all cool, and we have used one example of setting volume of some kind of soundtrack for our game, which will start when we play our game. That is dance funky sound, and it will go forever in loop, and we start that volume with 100% to the max, and when I press this button, green button in my top right corner, it goes to 0, so it's turned off, it's muted. And that's all cool. That works for example as we want in our game, but sometimes you want to have some finer control. This change volume by gives you possibility to control volume in specific steps, in specific amounts, bigger or smaller. You can change volume by 1, 2, 3, as much as you want, and that will make your volume go lower or higher more smoothly, with more control. And think about it as for volume on your TV or MP3 player or whatever you use to play music or sound, and then sometimes you don't want to mute sound to 0 as we did here, but sometimes you want to just lower it by some percent, 10 or 5 or something like that. So I want still to hear my music, but not as loud as it was, and also I don't want to turn it off completely. So when you want to do that, again, as you have that on your remote control when you watch TV, you have volume control with plus and minus. You also have same controls here when you go on this volume, how it's called, speakers volume settings mixer in Windows. So you have some kind of slider, and you can slide it by clicking here up and down, or you can also use up and down arrows. So I will use that now, and you can see how this slider goes up and becomes higher, my volume becomes higher, or it goes down. Now you hear less volume. So sometimes you will need that for your game, probably in your options menu, settings, sound settings screen or something like that. I will not make this slider, it would take a little bit more time and explanation, so I will just use my keyboards to do it. So in my case, so far I have this sound dance funky coded and connected to this sprite here, this green button. So it plays from it, it sets from it, it's coded into it. So I now need to control that with the code also in this same sprite. So because this sound is coded in my sprite green button, I will also have to code these new blocks in it, so it takes effect. So what I want to say is that if you, for example, use some kind of different sound and attached it and coded it into your different sprite other than green button, then code in that sprite. Okay, finally let's code something, and again we have to find this change volume by block. It's one of the sound blocks, so for example if you're in variables operators or whatever, just click on the sound group of blocks and try to find change volume by. It's third from the bottom. Click and drag it onto the screen, and I can even test it without adding it to some kind of code which is already here on my screen. I can put it here all alone and start my game and check now this button soundtrack volume. It says 100, so it's 100%, and if you don't see it, you can check this checkbox here, so it will show up on the screen. So that's my volume. It's like watching this slider here, and 100 here is max and 0 is minimum. So if I click now on this change volume by -10, take a look at this button soundtrack volume, and hear our soundtrack, how it goes lower and lower, so you cannot hear it as good as in start. So take a look now at this 100 number. It will go -10, so it means it will go 100 -10, it's 90, and my volume is a little bit lower, so it's not so loud. And I'm clicking it now a couple of times, and it goes down, so it's not silent, but you see how you can almost it's just like you cannot hear it anymore. So I can go to 0 and not below 0. 0 is minimum, and I have done this set volume to 0 by clicking 10 times change volume by -10. So that works, that's all cool. So now, let's now add that in some kind of code and make it more usable for our game. Again, just think about it and think about what you are doing here and what you want to do, and say it in English or whatever language you use, and then translate that in code. In my case, I want to do what? Already I have this green button on the screen, so when I press that button, this is the code for it. When this sprite is clicked, set volume to 0 and stop all sounds. That's like here, sorry, here. Mute, that works like this. Mute speakers, it goes straight away to the 0. So I already have that, so I want to code this change volume by -10 to some other sprites. Maybe I can click, but that is too complex for this video, and it would take more time, so I will code it to some kind of arrows, for example, which, as we saw here, when I press arrow up, I go volume 1% or whatever. When I press down, I go volume by -1. So let's try to find those keyboards and attach code to it. So again, what do I want to do? I want to do this. When I press arrow up, change volume by +10, so raise my volume. And when I press arrow down, change my volume by -10. So let's try to find keyboards for that. In my events, there is when space key is pressed, okay, that is a start. So instead of space, I want Maybe I would like to have a plus and minus, that would be maybe even better, but because up and down arrow could be used for my character movement. I don't see plus and minus here. Maybe I cannot find them. Maybe they are somewhere else. Anyway, I'm not going to lose any more time. I need up arrow. Here it is. Change volume by plus 10 or 10 plus 10. Yeah, I cannot add plus. So change volume by 10, and I will now click on it, duplicate it to make another one, and say okay, when I press up arrow, that means go volume by plus 10, and when I press, now click on this down arrow, find it, do what, go minus 10. And that's it, simple as that. So what we have done here is that we have added controls with up and down arrow to raise our volume by 10 and minus 10. So let me try my game now. I have started this, and you can see it's yellow, so Scratch reads this all the time because I said forever and plays sounds forever. That's all cool. And what will happen if I press the green button? It will turn my volume to 0 and stop all sounds. Okay, we have tested that. That works. We don't want to test that. We want this one to see if this works. What will happen if I press my up arrow? Because I'm already on 100, you see how it blinks, but because my volume is already max, it's 100, that's my max, I cannot go higher than that. But let me try down arrow and try to lower my volume. And you can see how it works. My music is now lower, it's not so loud. So for example, if someone comes to you when you play your game and you talk while you play your game, or you have a phone call, someone calls you, so you don't want to be disturbed with music, you turn a little bit off, and then when its phone call is finished, okay, I want my music up, I'm pressing now up arrow, go to the max, and I hear it to the max. Okay, so I want to sleep a little bit now, turn it lower, or I don't want to disturb someone reading the book next to me, and that works. That's it for this video. And again, yeah, I know I talk too much, but that's because this is very interesting and can be used on endless ways. And again, you can also make errors or problems with it if you don't have patience, or try to just copy paste code without thinking and so on. So again, I was coding here because my sound, my music is already here in this sprite. If I code it here in my bananas, what would happen if I set and change volume and something like that, whatever? Will it change my soundtrack, which is here in my green button, or will it change some kind of sound which is here in banana? So it will change this chomp sound, because that chomp sound is attached to banana, and this change volume works for it. So just be aware of that. That's very important, that you can play sounds independently on different sprites, change volume independently on different sprites, and so on. So for example, if you want to control sound on green button soundtrack with this banana, you wouldn't be able to do it easily in terms with these blocks which we have explained. You would have to first add some kind of variable and put this sound in it maybe, and then say change volume, or change that variable with this banana, and so on. Or for example, we could use broadcast message, also one possible way. So I'm just giving you a couple of examples to understand for some more intermediate to advanced users how you can control from one sprite something which happens on other sprites. So we could use broadcast message, make new message, stop music, and then say here in button sound when I receive stop music, set my volume and so on. So you can play with that if you need it. I don't need it in this example, this was relatively simple, I hope so. And again, 15 minutes, sorry, but this will probably be useful for your games. You will need some kind of control for your music, soundtrack, effects and so on. And again, just use it if you need it, whenever you need it. And for example, I can code these bananas if they were enemies like zombies to lower their volume, their sound effects. If they are, for example, I could say if I could put some kind of condition. If zombie is touching or close to player, then go change my volume to 50, go louder, scream louder. And if it's far away, then stop this sound, don't play it, or change the volume to -10. So you can have zombies scream louder when they are closer to your player or vice versa. That's it for this video. See you in next one. Next couple of videos still about sound and Scratch, but we are almost finished with all Scratch blocks and their explanations. Thanks for watching. See you soon.